Imagine a place so remote that your GPS literally gives up and says, "Good luck." A land where icebergs the size of Manhattan blocks drift silently through fjords, where the aurora paints the sky in impossible colors, and where ancient ice speaks in cracks and groans beneath your feet. Welcome to Greenland, the world's largest island, a territory of dramatic Arctic beauty, fragile ecosystems, and a history shaped by ice, isolation, and now, global attention. But in recent years, Greenland hasn't just been featured for its glaciers or Inuit culture. It has entered the spotlight of international geopolitics, and that spotlight appears to be affecting tourism in unpredictable ways, setting the scene. Greenland spans more than 2.1 million square kilometers, over 80% ice-covered, and is home to roughly 56,000 people, with Nuuk as its largest city of nearly 20,000 residents. Its economy historically relies on fishing, but tourism is rapidly emerging as a strategic growth sector. According to Greenland's Tourism Satellite Account 2024, the first of its kind, Tourism Now accounts for nearly 4.9% of Greenland's GDP, directly supports 1,800 jobs, which is 6% of total employment, brought in about 3 billion Danish kroner, 400 million dollars in total tourism expenditure in 2024, with international visitors spending over half of that. These figures reveal that Greenland's travel sector is still small but growing, with 149,000 visitors in 2024, the highest on record, and a steady increase in hotel nights and flight passengers compared to a decade earlier. So, what is the Trump effect? In late 2024 and into 2025, renewed interest in Greenland entered the global news cycle not as a tourism campaign, but as front-page geopolitical drama. After former U.S. President Donald Trump publicly floated the idea of the United States acquiring or asserting stronger control over Greenland, a proposal rejected emphatically by the Danish and Greenlandic governments, the island became a flashpoint of diplomatic headlines. That international attention, almost paradoxically, put Greenland on the map for travelers who might never have considered visiting the Arctic before. Several industry observers and local operators noted a surge in bookings and inquiries following heightened media coverage, attributing some of the growth to Greenland's newfound global visibility. One tourism operator told Reuters that in the months following the opening of Nuuk's new international airport and renewed media focus, including Trump's visit by his son, most tour operators saw increased bookings, and international passenger numbers rose by about 14% year-on-year early in 2025. This suggests a short-term bump in attention, where geopolitics inadvertently fueled curiosity and global interest in Greenland as a destination. Boom, courtesy of accessibility and awareness. Even excluding political headlines, tourism in Greenland was already on an upward trajectory, largely because of improved infrastructure and marketing. Nuuk opened a new international airport in late 2024, enabling direct flights from Europe and, for the first time in decades, seasonal direct flights from the United States beginning in summer 2025. Additional international airports in Ilulissat and Qaqortoq are slated to open by 2026, broadening access to more remote regions. Cruise visitation continues to grow, bringing visitors who want iceberg fjords without long overland travel. Travel survey data shows that international tourists in Greenland spend significantly on air transport, accommodations, experiences, food, and local goods, diversifying economic benefits across communities. Backlash, local concerns, and sustainable limits. But the Trump effect is not universally viewed as positive. Greenlanders overwhelmingly oppose any notion of becoming part of the U.S., viewing slogans like, "Greenland is not for sale," not just as political slogans, but cultural statements about self-determination and sovereignty, sentiment reinforced by mass protests in Nuuk and beyond. For locals and policymakers, this raises legitimate concerns about tourism's pace and impact, echoing broader global debates about over-tourism and cultural commodification. Some communities worry that too rapid an influx of visitors could overwhelm fragile infrastructure, diluting traditional life and placing stress on both environment and social fabric. Greenland's approach, reflected in 2025 policy reforms, attempts to balance openness with control. Regulations now emphasize locally owned tour operators, environmental safeguards, and sustainable growth that benefits Greenlandic residents rather than external corporations. Boom, bust, or backlash? Boom, yes, in many respects. Tourism numbers are increasing, and new airports and direct flight routes are catalyzing growth. Political spotlight played a role too, bringing unprecedented global awareness to the island. Backlash. Also, yes. If tourism grows without careful management, it could outpace capacity and undermine what makes Greenland unique: its remoteness, cultural distinctiveness, and wilderness character. Bust remains unlikely, not because nothing can go wrong, but because Greenland's strategic planners are deliberately plotting sustainable growth rather than mass tourism. Officials emphasize that tourism should not become the dominant industry overnight, but rather a means of enriching local life and diversifying the economy, the big picture. In 2025, Greenland stands at a crossroads where geopolitics, climate change, accessibility, and cultural preservation all intersect with tourism. Headlines about territorial claims may have thrust the island into global consciousness, but the true forces shaping tourism are infrastructure, sustainability policy, and the unwavering allure of Arctic wilderness. And while one president's rhetoric may have drawn attention, the story of Greenland's tourism, like its ancient ice and wind-carved fjords, will be shaped over decades, not headlines. Chapter 1: Before the Spotlight. Before Greenland became a geopolitical headline or a viral curiosity, tourism here was a quiet, almost secret affair, known mainly to polar scientists, hardcore adventurers, and travelers who measured vacations not in comfort, but in commitment. For decades, Greenland sat on the far edge of global tourism statistics. While Iceland surged past 2 million annual visitors and Norway perfected fjord cruising, Greenland moved at its own glacial pace. In the early 2010s, annual visitor numbers hovered well below 100,000, constrained not by lack of wonder, but by sheer accessibility. There were no highways linking towns, no railways piercing the interior, and no easy way in or out unless you were prepared to hopscotch across the North Atlantic. By 2023, tourism had quietly reached a milestone. Approximately 131,000 visitors arrived in Greenland, a significant increase compared to earlier years and a clear signal that curiosity about the Arctic was growing. These travelers came for iceberg-choked fjords near Ilulissat, for dog sledding under winter auroras, for Inuit hunting traditions still practiced along the coast, and for landscapes that felt less like a destination and more like another planet. But let's be honest, these numbers were still modest. Greenland's tourism economy remained microscopic compared to its Nordic neighbors. Iceland, by contrast, welcomed more tourists each month than Greenland did in an entire year. Norway's fjord regions alone generated more tourism revenue than Greenland's entire visitor economy combined. The reason was simple. Getting to Greenland was hard, deliberately so. There were no direct commercial flights from the United States and only limited connections from Europe, most DITIS. International travelers routed through Copenhagen, then boarded smaller aircraft to Kangerlussuaq. a former U.S. Air Force base repurposed as Greenland's main aviation gateway. From there, journeys continued by turboprop planes or helicopters, often delayed by fog, wind, or sudden Arctic weather shifts that laughed in the face of timetables. Logistics tested even seasoned travelers. Itineraries involved multiple stopovers, tight baggage limits, weather-induced cancellations, and prices that made budget airlines seem like charity organizations. Charter boats replaced roads, helicopters replaced buses, and meals, more often than not, involved cold sandwiches eaten in terminals while watching departure boards blink from on time to delayed to maybe tomorrow. Adventure tourism may celebrate the journey, but in Greenland, the journey wasn't a poetic metaphor. It was a logistical endurance event. Yet this very difficulty acted as a filter. Those who came were not accidental tourists. They were intentional. They stayed longer, spent more per day, hired local guides, and treated the landscape with reverence rather than checklist urgency. Tourism grew slowly, organically, shaped by limits imposed by geography, weather, and infrastructure, rather than marketing campaigns. Before the spotlight, Greenland's tourism was small, but it was sustainable, community-centered, and deeply rooted in place. The island was not trying to compete with Iceland's volume or Norway's polish. It was content to remain rare. Then the headlines arrived, and Greenland, once a footnote at the edge of the map, found itself suddenly, uncomfortably, and unmistakably at the center of the world's attention. Chapter 2. Enter Trump. Headlines explode. Then came the moment no tourism board, strategist, or Arctic elder could have predicted. In August 2019, U.S. President Donald J. Trump publicly floated the idea of buying Greenland. A statement so unexpected it detonated across global media like a geopolitical thunderclap. What began as a casual remark quickly escalated into front-page headlines, emergency press conferences, and diplomatic clarifications from Denmark, Greenland, and just about everyone with access to a microphone. Greenland, long absent from nightly news, was suddenly everywhere. Major outlets dissected the idea with equal parts disbelief and fascination. Commentators debated rare earth minerals, Arctic shipping lanes, military strategy, and climate geopolitics. Graphics appeared explaining that Greenland is not actually for sale, that it is an autonomous territory within the Kingdom of Denmark, and that no, you cannot simply Venmo a sovereign Arctic nation. But facts were almost beside the point. The damage, or opportunity, depending on perspective, was already done. Search interest for Greenland spiked globally within days. According to Google Trends, worldwide queries surged to their highest levels on record, peaks during major climate summits. Social media transformed the island into a meme factory. Icebergs wearing MAGA hats, maps comparing Greenland's size to the United States, and endless jokes asking whether Greenland came furnished. And amid the satire, something more subtle happened. People noticed Greenland, not as a scientific abstraction, not as a melting data point, but as a place with towns, with airports, with dog sleds and glaciers, and people who wake up every morning beneath a sky most humans will never see. Travel blogs began publishing, "Wait, can you actually visit Greenland?" explainers. YouTube creators rushed out videos titled, "The Island Trump Wanted to Buy." Airlines saw spikes in page views for routes that, weeks earlier, barely registered on analytics dashboards. Tourism boards, stunned but attentive, watched awareness metrics climb faster than icebergs calving into Disco Bay. Crucially, this was not yet a surge in bookings. It was a surge in curiosity. Most viewers had no idea how to get there. They did not understand the costs, the weather risks, or the infrastructure limits. They simply knew Greenland existed, and that it mattered. In a media ecosystem driven by attention, Greenland had crossed a threshold few remote places ever do. It became part of the global conversation. For decades, Greenland's obscurity had been its shield. Now, overnight, it was a symbol of Arctic strategy, climate change, great power competition, and yes, internet absurdity. And as history repeatedly shows, once curiosity ignites at scale, tourism is never far behind. The question was no longer whether Greenland would feel the impact. It was what kind of impact would follow. Boom, bust, or backlash. The ice was shifting, not just beneath the glaciers, but beneath the future of Greenland itself. Chapter 3. Metrics tell the story. Boom. So did the headline hurricane actually move bodies across the Arctic Circle? Short answer, yes. Long answer, yes, but carefully, unevenly, and with a few raised eyebrows in Nuuk. Once the memes faded and curiosity matured into intent, the numbers began to respond, slowly at first, then with real momentum. The single biggest catalyst arrived in late 2024 when Nuuk's new international airport runway officially opened, allowing larger aircraft and direct long-haul connections that Greenland had spent decades planning for. This was not a Trump-era vanity project. It was a strategic infrastructure investment years in the making, but the timing was impossible to ignore. By early 2025, international passenger arrivals were up approximately 14% year-on-year, according to preliminary Aviation and Tourism Authority data. For a destination where growth is usually measured in single digits, or not at all, that jump was seismic. On the ground, operators felt it immediately. Roughly 3/4 of Greenlandic tour operators reported increased inquiries and confirmed bookings following the airport's launch. Demand rose most sharply for iceberg cruises in Disco Bay, heli hiking and glacier trekking, northern lights, winter packages, small ship expedition cruises extending stays on land. Importantly, these were not mass tourism bookings. Greenland's price point, climate, and capacity still filter out casual travelers. The average visitor stayed longer and spent more per day than the European norm, aligning with Greenland's long-standing preference for low-volume, high-value tourism. Accommodation metrics confirm the trend. Hotel nights climbed from roughly 210,000 in 2014 to around 355,000 in recent years, reflecting a decade-long rise that accelerated post-2020 as Arctic travel gained cultural cachet. Guest houses expanded, new boutique lodges opened. Even remote settlements saw modest increases in overnight stays linked to guided expeditions. Economically, tourism crossed a psychological threshold. By 2024, tourism contributed approximately 4.9% of Greenland's GDP and directly employed around 1,800 people, a meaningful figure in a country of just 56,000 residents. In coastal towns where fishing dominates seasonal income, tourism has become a critical secondary pillar, stabilizing households and funding local services. For the first time, Greenland was no longer merely interesting. It was competitive, not against Iceland's volume or Norway's polish, but as a premium Arctic destination where remoteness is the product, not the obstacle. Airlines took notice. Expedition companies expanded itineraries. Travel media stopped calling Greenland the next Iceland and started treating it as something fundamentally different. From the outside, it looked like a textbook boom. Awareness up, access improved, revenue rising, jobs created. But here's the twist. Greenland has seen booms before, and every Greenlander knows that when change arrives too fast, whether carried by empires, mining, interests, or global attention, it leaves scars beneath the surface. The same forces fueling tourism growth were also raising hard questions. Who controls the narrative? Who benefits first? And how much exposure is too much for a culture built on balance with an unforgiving land? Because in the Arctic, growth isn't just an opportunity, it's a risk. And that's where this story turns. Chapter 4. Infrastructure. New flights, new problems. Infrastructure, in theory, is progress. In practice, especially in the Arctic, it is a high-stakes experiment conducted in wind, ice, and darkness. The turning point came with Nuuk's expanded international airport, which officially began handling larger, long-haul aircraft in late 2024. For the first time, Greenland's capital could bypass its traditional dependence on Ilulissat's former U.S. Air Force runway and connect directly to the outside world. The headline moment followed quickly. In 2025, United Airlines launched direct, seasonal service from Nuuk to Nuuk, marking the first direct commercial U.S. Greenland route in nearly 2 decades. Symbolically, it was enormous. Practically, it rewired how travelers perceived the island overnight. Greenland was no longer a multi-hop endurance test. It was suddenly one long flight away from North America's largest metro region. On paper, this was a triumph. And it didn't stop there. New international capable airports are under construction or expansion in Ilulissat, gateway to the UNESCO-listed Ice Fjord, and Qaqortoq in South Greenland. The goal is clear: decentralize tourism, reduce pressure on Nuuk, and distribute economic benefits to smaller communities long excluded by geography. But here's the Arctic reality check. Flights may be direct, but they are not predictable. Greenland's weather does not negotiate. Fog, katabatic winds, icing conditions, and sudden snow squalls regularly disrupt schedules. Delays and cancellations remain common, even with modern navigation systems. When a single inbound flight carries a week's worth of tourists, one weather event can ripple across hotels, tours, and onward transport for days. Then there's capacity. Hotels in Nuuk and Ilulissat are operating near their practical limits during peak season. New rooms are coming online, but construction timelines in Greenland stretch long. Materials arrive by ship, labor is scarce, and winter shuts down projects for months at a time. When demand spikes faster than beds appear, prices climb and availability evaporates. Staffing adds another layer of strain. In a country of approximately 56,000 people, the labor pool is finite. Tour operators report difficulty hiring qualified guides, boat captains, mechanics, hospitality workers, and aviation staff. Training takes time. Importing labor raises cultural and political sensitivities. Burnout is a growing concern in peak season, when small teams run at maximum capacity under unforgiving conditions. Even basic services feel the pressure. Waste management in remote settlements. Fuel logistics for tour boats. Search and rescue readiness as more inexperienced travelers venture into Arctic terrain. Infrastructure here is not modular. You cannot simply scale it overnight. Greenland's challenge is not ambition. It is sequencing. The island is trying to sprint toward global connectivity before fully mastering the logistics of growth in one of the harshest environments on Earth. Every runway extension unlocks opportunity, but also multiplies complexity. Every new flight brings revenue and risk in equal measure. In warmer climates, infrastructure mistakes are inconvenient. In Greenland, they are existential. Because when systems fail in the Arctic, there is no backup lane, no neighboring city, no easy workaround. There is only weather, distance, and the reality that progress here must move at the speed the land allows. And this raises the most uncomfortable question of all. What happens if the growth keeps coming, but the island cannot absorb it safely? That is where optimism gives way to caution, and where the next chapter begins. Chapter 5. The Backlash and Local Perspective. This is where the jokes stop landing quite so lightly. Because while Greenland may have been trending in global headlines, on the ground the mood was far more complicated and far less amused. The sudden spotlight ignited a wave of political and cultural pushback, especially in the years following the infamous purchase remarks. Across Greenland and Denmark, the phrase "Greenland is not for sale" became more than a slogan. It became a declaration of identity. Political leaders, local councils, and everyday citizens pushed back hard against what many perceived as casual imperial language aimed at a place with a long history of being spoken about, rather than with. Public demonstrations in Nuuk and statements from Inatsisartut, Greenland's parliament, emphasized sovereignty, self-determination, and cultural respect. For many Greenlanders, the issue was never tourism, it was narrative control. The concern was simple, but profound. What happens when your homeland becomes famous for a headline, not for its people? Tourism, when carefully managed, is widely supported in Greenland. It brings jobs, funds infrastructure, and allows Inuit culture to be shared on local terms. But attention driven by geopolitical spectacle carries risks. Locals worry that being cast as a strategic asset, or worse, a punchline, could cheapen the very qualities tourism is meant to protect: language, tradition, subsistence lifestyles, and fragile ecosystems. There is also a fear of misaligned expectations. Some travelers arrived chasing the viral idea of Greenland, expecting instant access, cinematic solitude, and Instagram-ready isolation, only to collide with reality. Arctic travel is expensive by necessity. Weather cancels plans without apology. Tours book out months in advance. And when infrastructure is stretched, even premium experiences can feel rushed or crowded. For visitors unprepared for these constraints, disappointment followed. Reviews began to reflect the gap between myth and mechanics. Trips delayed by days due to fog, canceled excursions with limited refunds, accommodation shortages driving up prices, popular routes feeling suddenly busy. Ironically, the hype that drew attention to Greenland sometimes undermined the very sense of remoteness people sought. From the local perspective, this creates tension. Too little tourism limits economic opportunity. Too much, too fast, risks cultural dilution and environmental strain. And a tension rooted in politics rather than place can foster resentment rather than pride. Greenlandic voices increasingly stress a central principle: tourism must serve the community, not consume it. That means controlled growth, local ownership, realistic storytelling, and visitors who arrive informed, not dazzled by headlines alone. The backlash is not anti-tourism, it is anti-reduction. Greenland is not a meme, not a commodity, not a bargaining chip. It is a homeland, one that welcomes guests but insists on respect. And that tension between fascination and fatigue, between opportunity and autonomy, is now shaping the future of travel to the Arctic in ways no headline ever could. Which brings us to the final question. After the hype, the metrics, the runways, and the backlash, was the Trump effect a boom, a bust, or a warning? The answer lies ahead, Chapter 6. What the data really says. Now, let's pull this story out of the ice fog and put it under a hard Arctic light. Strip away the memes, the political noise, and the late-night monologues, and the data tells a far more nuanced and far more interesting story. First, boom, yes. Unequivocally, but not explosively. According to Statistics Greenland and Visit Greenland, international arrivals and overnight stays have followed a steady upward curve for more than a decade, accelerating after the pandemic recovery and the launch of new aviation infrastructure. The opening of Nuuk's expanded international airport in late 2024 was the single most important catalyst, not any political comment. Accessibility matters more than attention, and runways matter more than rhetoric. Air capacity increased, seat availability improved, travel friction dropped slightly, and when friction drops in the Arctic, demand responds. Second, bust? No. There is no evidence of collapse, retreat, or demand evaporation. What exists instead are structural growing pains. Greenland's tourism system is operating close to its tolerance limits, not because demand is artificial, but because supply is finite by design. A population of roughly 56,000 people cannot scale labor, accommodation, and guiding services at the pace of global curiosity. This is not failure. It is constraint. Hotel occupancy in Mont Titouan. Nuuk and Ilulissat has reached seasonal saturation. Tour operators report longer wait lists, not cancellations. Cruise traffic is being actively regulated to avoid over-tourism scenarios seen elsewhere in the Arctic, particularly in Iceland and Svalbard. From a sustainability standpoint, this is intentional, even if it frustrates last-minute travelers. Third, backlash? Yes, and this may be the most consequential outcome of all. Political scientists and sociologists studying Greenlandic autonomy note that the media frenzy reinforced long-standing sensitivities around sovereignty, identity, and representation. Greenland's leadership has been explicit. Tourism is welcome, but ownership of narrative is non-negotiable. This backlash is not anti-American, nor anti-visitor. It is anti-reductionism. Greenland does not want to be known because it was almost bought. It wants to be known because it is inhabited, historic, and alive. And here is the critical insight the data reveals. Tourism growth is real, but it is not Trump-driven. Long-term drivers dominate. Global interest in polar and last-chance tourism, climate consciousness and Arctic science curiosity, infrastructure investment planned years in advance, a growing market for indigenous-led cultural travel. The Trump headlines functioned as an accelerant of awareness, not a foundation of demand. In economic terms, this was not a speculative bubble. It was an attention shock layered onto an existing trend line. So what is the final verdict? Boom? Yes. Measured, infrastructure-led, and cautious. Bust? No. But expectations need recalibration. Backlash? Absolutely. And it may ultimately protect Greenland from becoming the very thing travelers claim to hate. Because Greenland is not selling ease. It is selling effort, cold showers, weather delays, flights that leave when the Arctic allows, fjords that refuse to be rushed, and the stories, the kind you earn, not download. What began as a bizarre geopolitical footnote has evolved into both an economic opportunity and a global lesson. When the world suddenly notices you, growth must be guided, or it will guide you. So if you're thinking of booking that Arctic journey, understand this. Greenland does not care why you came, only how you behave once you arrive. Subscribe for more data-driven travel stories from the edge of the map. And tell us below, would you go to Greenland because of a headline, or because the icebergs have better character development than most people you know?